Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, the All-Star break is over. It is hazy, smoky, and odd outside right now. If you're in the Chicagoland area, we'll see what that means for the game at Wrigley Field tonight. I don't think we're going to get any postponement or anything like that. It is supposed to start clearing up in the evening, I believe, in the Chicagoland area. But it is some odd. It is odd out there. I know where I live in Evanston. It smells smoky. Different parts of the suburbs, I don't think it's as bad, but it smells and looks awful, and not the best weather to be playing baseball in or being outside in.
This is some apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully things get a little better as the weekend progresses. It's a weird way to be kicking off the 2016 teams reunion tour weekend. But yeah, I think their forecast looks relatively promising, at least compared to just how bad it's been, like worst air quality in the world.
We talked to John Lester last episode, so we didn't really get to talk. We didn't dive into kind of how that break like how they ended before the break, and one of the things we talked about was, hey, a 4-2 road trip would be kind of great considering all the injuries. We'd have to give a lot of credit to Counsell and his coaching staff and how they've kind of guided this group through through a difficult moment, but
they're the stars.
So they pulled that off. They did a really good job. The team 4-2 before the break on the road against some, lower quality opponents as far as their record goes. Now two teams, a 6-game homestand, two teams that they're hoping fall out of the race because they'd love to trade with these guys. Minnesota, Detroit, they're both, the AL is a mess as far as if you want to trade, good luck finding a team outside of like Kansas City and the Angels, and I don't think Kansas City really has much to sell or wants to sell a lot. But it's a weird year. The wild card makes it extra odd. The multiple wild cards, obviously, and I don't like if you had to, if you were betting right now on Detroit or Minnesota selling, I don't think either of them are. Detroit, especially, they've gotten hot. After being so bad for an extended period of time, they're in a win now mode, right? So all the more reason to avoid selling. But the Cubs are buyers. They're firmly in that buy stand. What type of buyers is probably the only question, and what kind of pitchers can they get? Because we know that's what they're focused on, pitching.
Very interesting to see like how the Cubs perform out of the break, not only to improve their own chances and further motivate the front office, but maybe knock out a team or two. You're looking at the Twins, which has an altered ownership structure. Now they brought in some minority investors within the Pohlad family. They changed or rearranged the leadership at the top, and reading Dan Hayes' coverage in The Athletic, like there's definitely a different voice in there now, sort of like pushing them to be competitive and like give their fans a reason to watch. And that's one of those variables. It's usually not quite as out in the open as it is there, but the ownership is a big factor at the deadline for almost every team. I'd be curious to see how the Tigers perform, because I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they win their division. They have a lot of talent on paper. They have the pitcher that every team would theoretically want. But you and I both asked Jed versions of this question at Wrigley Field a couple weeks ago, of like, you're probably going to be in second place at best at the trade deadline. Now, even since then, they've shaved that deficit a bit. I mean, to get it to 5 behind the Brewers in the middle of July, I think is significant. And then, as Jed says, you look at how your team is playing. You have to know your own team's personnel and then some of the underlying metrics. And in all of those regards, I think the Cubs have been pretty impressive. Like, that's not being a homer. It's not making excuses. But, I mean, this pitching staff has been just devastated by injuries, and you see all of these different guys stepping up. We'll see if Bregman can kind of carry that momentum into the last couple months of the season. They're not the 2016 team. I know when they had those 10-game winning streaks, people got a little giddy. But that's kind of an impossible standard to live up to. They have a really solid team. Maybe we wrote the other day, maybe the best player in baseball not named Shohei Ohtani, an awesome defense. And I think the hope is that all of this adversity has built up some resiliency that'll pay off down the stretch.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to just base it off a couple mailbag questions or comments that I see, but there are a lot of fans that are like, what's the point of being aggressive at the deadline or just don't seem to understand how A, there aren't that many great teams, and B, that the Cubs are pretty good. They, like, I understand that the injuries make it a little more complicated as far as how you view this team, but they've weathered the pretty big storm. We'll see how healthy they get over the next few days and weeks, and then what type of moves they make to really supplement this roster, because obviously there are moves to be made. Let's take a quick break and then talk about like how they may treat this deadline and some of the, I guess, the like continue this discussion of how there may not be exactly what they're looking for available, but Craig Counsell may not care the way he looks at pitching.
Kip, I've been looking for the best deals for the All-Star Game tickets in Philly. Where are you going to get some tickets from?
I'm going straight out to right field. If Harper and Schwarber both join the home run derby, I want to be catching the hometown guys hitting them. So I'm going out to the right field, kind of where I think I could get the best chance of catching one of those home runs.
Maybe in the second deck. You can go on the app and you can look to see what your view is going to be, because them boys are going to be launching them, Johns. And with over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There's more than 70,000 events listed at SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. And of course, I have a code for y'all. You can use the code Territory10 for 10% off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off MLB tickets with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek, and we'll see you at the game.
All right, Patrick. Craig Counsell likes to say outgetters. That's what he's looking for. We know the Cubs are looking for pitching. There's no secret here. That's what they're going to be looking for over the next, 3-ish weeks before we're at the deadline. What type of pitching can we expect, and what is the strategy that you expect to see over the coming weeks for this team?
A volume strategy. I think our understanding through our reporting is there's going to be a scarcity of starting pitchers available. I think we kind of doubt Skubal's going to get traded anyways, putting that belief in the Tigers. But even if he was available, just not really a Jed type of move at this point. I think the model would say no. The rental factor is a big deal to them. But I don't know. You look at, I got Baseball Reference pulled up right here, and you just look at some of these valuable pitchers that they've found to contribute out of the bullpen. Like Jacob Webb was a major league signing, but he was supposed to sort of like pitch maybe the 6th inning or keep games close when the Cubs were trailing. And, he has more saves than Daniel Palencia. Trent Thornton coming off a big injury, has 3 saves, 2.48 ERA, 29 innings. That was a minor league deal. Ryan Rollison bounced around a bunch of different places this offseason and has really settled in. And, in Cincinnati, I spoke to him a little bit, and he was just saying how big a deal confidence is. That like when he showed up in Arizona, he said it was about an hour meeting, and it was a pitching group sort of walking him through, this is what we think you're good at, this is where we think you can improve, this is how we envision using you. And Rollison said it's not just the confidence you get from when you do the job, it's when you make a mistake, when you mess up, and knowing that they still have your back and they'll put you right back out there for the right pocket or whatever you want to call it. And that's something Drew Pomeranz has stressed as well. And I think some of these relievers, you're going to try and just get lucky with small sample sizes, or you might look at the prices for, a number 2 or 3 starter and say, maybe it makes more sense to load up on the bullpen, knowing how important that is in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Cubs fans are going to be frustrated with that if they don't go out and get a starter, if they don't go out and get some impact arms. I think that's it's very likely that the Cubs fans are going to end up screaming and yelling if that doesn't happen. But they have done a good job of finding, just like you said, you named the guys that they've found this year, and sometimes the biggest names, you talked about a small sample, sometimes the biggest names don't perform in that small sample, especially relief pitching, unless if they can go get like Mason Miller, or if the Padres are selling and then they move Morahone, those are guys that kind of like know are going to perform. They're going to do really well, and there's no doubt of the impact that they can provide. But a lot of these guys, it's like you got to trust your scouts and trust your pitching coaches. This guy's on the up. This guy, we trust that this guy's going to do really well. Andrew Kittredge last year was maybe not like the biggest addition at the deadline for any team. I think he had just like a couple bad outings that he still had a 3.32 ERA with the Cubs. And it was really like 1 or 2 bad outings that even had it that high. He was pretty dominant with them, striking guys out, not walking anyone, putting the ball on the ground, kind of a perfect addition for that team, and did a lot of great work in the playoffs for them. I think he was a pretty important piece. And the big names, I mean, it's just like free agency, whether it's Phil Maton or any of these other big names that were signed over the winter.
Brad Keller,
who's now looks like he's out for this season. So it you can't just assume that it's the big names, but I do think they need to add a starting pitcher. Prices and availability may limit that, but they have the ability to be aggressive in a sense if a guy's under contract beyond this season.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, because I don't want to totally put a damper on expectations or like rule out something big, because I think you could talk yourself into the pitcher who's under club control, or if there's a rental starter that's not Skubal, but you feel like you could kind of maximize whatever 11 starts and 2 or 3 playoff starts, like that's super valuable. I think they'd be open to it. Important to remember how much work they did on that reliever market. last offseason, particularly with the Mets selling. I mean, they made an offer to Devin Williams. I know it hasn't been a great season in New York. Luke Weaver's pitched really well, and that was a guy they were on as well. And I think if you're David Stearns, you got to move those pieces now and get something back, and try again with a different group of relievers. I think you had mentioned this off air as well. I mean, Brooks Raley, someone the Cub, former Cub, who they've done work on before, so they should have a lot of material kind of already in house, and then it becomes that matter of talking to what's left of your scouting department, your analytics group, and your major league instructors, your outgetter manager, and being like, okay, how can we maximize this player's talents? And I think they've shown they kind of have a knack for that.
And when you bring up the Mets, they do have starters available too that could make sense. I mean, Freddie Peralta is not pitching as well as we've seen him pitch. Depending on how much he costs, though, I mean, this gets back to it's 2.5 months of a guy. What's to say you can't lock it in and have a great 2.5 months if they see something and believe that they can do something? Then that's then that's really valuable for them. He has the potential to be really impactful, right? He has a chance to be a really impactful starter. And then Clay Holmes is making a rehab start soon too, and he could be an impactful addition if, especially in front of this defense. I think you add a guy that puts the ball on the ground a lot, has a relationship with some of the guys in the org. That could be a valuable addition. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we can talk about the status of some of the guys that are injured for the Cubs.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, the MLB season is in full swing, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Joining the action is easy. Just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game, and if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home of home runs. So, are you ready to play your game? Head over to FanDuel.com/podcast to get started. That's FanDuel.com/podcast to opt in for daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball. Swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, Patrick. Like I said earlier in the show, we didn't get a chance to talk about some things, get some updates on some things when you were on the road. John Lester obviously had some good stories to tell, so we just kind of let him cook. What's the status on injured guys? Where are the Cubs with that, and who can we expect to get back soon or maybe not soon?
Yeah, we'll have a better idea when we go to Wrigley Field this weekend, and obviously things can change over the All-Star break. But that last Sunday in Cincinnati, I'd asked Counsell for kind of a rundown on several pitchers of just like what is the snapshot, and obviously, knowing the Cubs' luck, hopefully no one had like a water skiing accident or something like that, and there are always a chance for setbacks. But I thought it was a fairly accurate gauge of like them going into the break and what they were sort of hoping for. In Baltimore, we had already heard, Justin Steele, first week of August to kind of ramp up a throwing program off the mound. Near term, again, assuming everything stays on track, Jameson Taillon should be reinserted into the rotation, during this first homestand here out of the All-Star break. Edward Cabrera is behind that, and it's been hard to get kind of a firm timeline for him, but the idea is that once he gets back from the break is kind of start throwing off a mound, sort of, lightly or testing things out with the idea of in late July ramping up a throwing progression that would involve, bullpen sessions, live batting practice. Dana Palencia, the closer, was scheduled to go to Arizona during the All-Star break to work. The hope is to get him throwing bullpen sessions after the All-Star break. I asked Counsell point blank, realistic to think Ben Brown will pitch again this year? He said yes. But coming back as a starter, he said, I don't know if we have clarity on that. So the hope there is he'd already started throwing the plyo balls, and that, if he's asymptomatic a week after the All-Star break, you could start mapping out a pretty good throwing program or sort of a normal progression. But, I put that within a story, and I noticed some commenters were like, you're bearing the lead here. I thought it was pretty obvious if in late June you're shut down with a neck injury that almost wiped out an entire season earlier, and you're talking about having to revamp your mechanics to make sure it doesn't happen again. Plus just the normal, there isn't a flip you switch, you're cleared, you're healthy, you're a very good major league pitcher again. With all of these guys, Counsell's acknowledged, you saw it with Matthew Boyd. It takes a few outings to get used to game speed again and having that same feel and conviction. So all of these players are going to have to go through that process. And then I guess two more. If Hobie Milner's original timeline stands, that was sort of appendicitis, basically a month. That would be him coming back adjacent to the trade deadline. And then Hunter Harvey, there is concern that he may not pitch again this season. They have to acknowledge that possibility. And the way Counsell explained it was just with his arm, they haven't quite gotten to a place where it's been totally asymptomatic, and that they're just not quite sure how his recovery process would work in terms of bouncing back and being able to be a major league pitcher. But with the way the calendar works, they're sort of just going to try and push through. These are not very medical terms. It's not the most precise way to frame it, but there are some gray areas here. And that, I guess, the bottom line takeaway for a guy that, as you know, Sahadev, they thought could be one of those electric hard throwing relievers in late game situations is they're going to give it a shot, but they know that he may just not come back this year.
Yeah. Harvey would be a huge addition if healthy, but that's
can't count on him.
Yeah, that's the thing that's always been the case with him. If healthy, he's an impactful arm. They rolled the dice. They knew what they were doing when they signed him. They took a shot hoping they could keep him healthy. That was the focus. It didn't work out. There a lot of this stuff. If Justin Steele and Ben Brown return to the bullpen, that's still valuable. Giving innings. Counsell can take it with just innings anywhere. I think that's the point. It's that's the kind of the point of this episode is that just they'll take innings anywhere, especially if they're really quality innings. We know Ben Brown can do that when he's right. Who knows where Justin Steele will be at when he's ready to pitch in big league games, as far as the quality of this stuff, how efficient he can be getting outs. It seems all but ruled out that he's coming back as a starter this year. But he could build up to be multiple innings in relief, possibly. We'll see where he gets to, what point he gets to, how the rehab continues to go for him. But most of these updates just feel like the bullpen can get better. Can the starting rotation get better? I think it's going to depend on, what type of Jameson Tyone you get back, and then when Edward Cabrera gets back. That's a big one, and what he looks like when he returns, if he can live up to a lot of the hopes and expectations that they had for him when they traded for him. All right, let's wrap this up. We'll have one more episode this week. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.